join March and Olson's 1972 theory of the garbage can model, which looks at decision-making within organizations and rejects the idea of a rational/linear decision-making process. John Kingdon adapted the MSF theory in his 1984 book, Agendas, Alternatives, and Public Policies, to create the multiple streams framework. Kingdon developed this model to look specifically at agenda setting within the US political system at the time. Within the MSF, it is assumed that ambiguity exists, policymakers work under time and resource constraints, and that power fluctuates, so it's not a fixed thing within MSF. It rejects the idea that decision-making or agenda setting is an exercise of rational problem solving. When we talk about MSF, it's really firstly important to understand what Kingdon means by agenda within this theory. So Kingdon 1984 defines agenda on page 3 of his book as the list of subjects or problems to which governmental officials and people outside of government closely associated with those officials are paying some serious attention at any given time. Definition in mind, let's now look at the key elements of MSF and look at how it describes the policymaking process. So there are 5 key elements of this framework. These are the problem stream, the policy stream, the politics stream, windows of opportunity, and policy entrepreneurs. Let's firstly look at the 3 streams. So within MSF, there are these 3 streams in which things exist. These things can all exist simultaneously. As stated, these 3 streams are firstly the problem stream, where problems get defined and redefined. Secondly, the policy stream, where policy communities and policy structures develop policy alternatives. And thirdly, the political stream, where people who are either elected or appointed to an official role are competing for power. MSF describes the policy-making process by suggesting that when these streams become intertwined or are ready to become coupled together due to something like a specific focusing event, numerical indicators, negative feedback on certain policies, or by the work of what is called a policy entrepreneur who push forward a certain problem, there is a window of opportunity created where there is a chance for policy to be changed or an agenda to be further pushed forward. What Kingdon suggests about the policymaking process with these 3 streams is that when it comes to something being put on the political agenda, it is not just one area that can make that happen. And there is work being done in 3 separate areas that need to intersect for something to be placed onto the agenda. When that work intersects, we have that window of opportunity for policy change. Kingdon describes windows of opportunity as a fleeting opportunity for advocates or proposals to push their pet solutions or to push attention to their special problems. On page 165 of his book is where that comes from. In this, Kingdon is suggesting that if someone from the policy stream, for example, goes to the politics stream arguing for a certain problem to be put at the top of the agenda, but the politics stream is not yet ready because there is not the appropriate indicators, focusing events, or negative feedback, then the problem is very unlikely to be placed at the top of the agenda as that window of opportunity does not exist. These are how the 3 streams and the window of opportunity operate within the MSF, being the first 4 key elements of this theory. The 5th element is what we call policy entrepreneurs. So these are the people that are able to see these windows of opportunity and harness them to create change. As Belland and Howard 2016 suggest, policy entrepreneurs are people that advocate for certain problems and solutions. This can be individuals or organizations. Policy entrepreneurs are really more than just advocates, though. Policy entrepreneurs can really assess these 3 differing streams to pair solutions to problems, and they can really manipulate the streams via lobbying, networking, and negotiation to create these windows of change and help place a problem at the top of the agenda. There are some key common critiques of this model found within the literature. So the first is that given the Western/US context within which this theory was developed, it cannot be applied in the same way across the world, making its ideas not super universal. Carney and Zadaris 2016 present an example of this, in which they take the work from Zhu in 2008, who suggests that a theory developed in the US cannot be used to describe policymaking in China effectively. To assess Kingdon's three streams, it demonstrates how the windows of opportunity to create policy change in China function very differently to the US context, perhaps showing how Kingdon's concept is not universal. Another common criticism as developed by Carney and Zerodias is that MSF would be difficult to operationalize given how broad the theory is. Zerodias argues that more specificity and detail within the theory could allow it to be better used as an analytical tool when assessing policy. And finally, when looking at why public policy theory is developed, theory really exists to help people understand what has happened in the past, present, and what may happen in the future. MSF is a great theory to apply retrospectively. However, its ability to help us interpret what may happen in the future is potentially limited. So, in conclusion, much of the literature agrees that MSF offers a great starting point for understanding how problems may get to the top of an agenda and helps to demonstrate the complexities of the policy process. It denies that decision-making is a rational act and can be a useful tool for understanding how policy change is potentially created. Although met with some limitations regarding its universality, broadness, and ability to help us predict future change, the theory stands as a key framework within public policy analysis and is still widely utilized